I'm Brandon Miller, and you are listening to Coach. This weekly series dives deep into the world of Clifton strengths and how they impact your daily life. Hear from certified strengths coaches on the ins and outs, quirks, and characteristics of all 34 strengths and 4 domains and how they play out in real life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back. Season 2, The Strengths Whisperer, Coach to Coach. Today, I am joined by KBJ. And if you know, you know. That's Ken Barr Jr. Wherever you look, there he is. Facebook, the Gram, on X, or LinkedIn. Ken Barr Jr. has been in the coaching movement for well over a decade, almost 2, right, Ken?
Yeah.
Very early adopter in the space. Ken and I are going to dive into the strategic thinking domain. So we're going to give time and space for all of you who lead with this domain, work with those who lead with this domain, have teams with representation in this domain, or just want to know more about the thinking side of the house. Ken and I are going to spend our time doing that. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brandon. It's great to be here.
Now, I know you've listened to a few, so you know how this is going. We're going to ask you quite a few questions about the domain we're covering. We've done most of the 34 strengths. We're getting into the domains now and giving our listeners a chance to connect their knowledge of the themes to the domains. But for the sake of just introductions, would you like to tell the folks what you're up to right now in the strengths world?
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. So I am currently keeping a foot in higher education. I got a summer bridging group that I'm working with, and I have several sports teams that I've been able to meet with and do more comprehensive strengths development work. And I am based out of West Michigan. So summer is the time to get in a little bit of that professional development before folks go back to school.
Very cool. And so if you heard that, higher ed, KBJ is your person to bring out and do some work with your team. As he said, keeps him young, keeps him fresh, keeps him in that pickleball world, right, Ken?
That's right, sir.
And those, winning those matches. So, Ken, let's talk strategic thinking. So, this is one of those domains that keep the team focused on what could be, constantly absorbing and analyzing information, helping the team make better decisions. So, high level, when we think of this domain, love to hear you start to unpack for us how you relate to this one, recognize it, or even start to describe it to others.
Sure. When I'm talking about strategic thinking, any of the 8 themes within that domain, it's with an understanding that there is an appetite to collect, analyze, process information, all of that with intention. And that intention is either to inform a decision, help somebody learn, create a pathway and opportunities. But the thing that they absolutely love the most is let me take in a bunch of info and then work it through my mind and then deliver something.
So when we think about taking in the information, you have some deep thinkers represented in this domain, those intellections. You know, you have the constantly curious learners, the more intuitive strategics, the dreamer visionaries, right, with your futurists. So there's a lot of variance here in the modality of thinking, and yet that grouping of them starts to help inform, when you collect all those strengths together, then they start to show you a certain path, a certain direction they go. And so I know you've coached many people strong in this domain, worked with teams strong in this domain. What are some ways that you have helped either individuals or teams or both, however you want to help guide this, to really make the most of these thinking strengths?
Yeah, well, from a maximizer perspective, and I realize that's an influencing strength, it is if you want to get the most out of people who lead with high strategic thinking, it's create opportunities for them to do just that. Anything that empowers them to collect information, teach other people valuable input, and even brainstorming or strategizing. If forecasting is an element of that role, they're going to enjoy the process of finding out what are all the pertinent pieces of information that they need in order to make the informed decision.
I have found as well that there's a strong teaching component with this domain. That the collecting, the archiving, the processing the information seems to find its output, right? Into how do I then train, teach? So you in higher ed, I'm sure, with the land of professors and researchers, I'm sure we get a strong collection of these folks over there that are turning around and teaching.
Yeah, we see so much input, learner, intellection, and it's because mission critical for colleges and universities is to draw that out. And I think of it, input is one of those themes. It is the sponge is the metaphor, but it's not only is there intense satisfaction from absorbing some information, but there's also satisfaction from the squeezing it out. It's the sharing.
That's good. I'm going to let you, if you don't mind, take us through the 8. So the sponge, I have a good metaphor with that one. And when it's in the room, input loves to be helpful, just loves to be, the resource allocator, the one that shares. So that's a really great, I think it's going to give us good context, high level, here's the 8, and then we're going to come back and we're going to push them back into a group.
Sure. So we started with input, and it's to know the very unique characteristic of those who lead with high input is they crave more information. And you get the best of them when they have unlimited access. Let them get as much as they need. Let them ask their questions. Let them read the white paper before the thing. Let them get informed. If you do that, then they will parse it for you. They will take the information. This is what you need in order to do the thing that you, whatever that next step is. Context. Context is we liken it to a 10,000 foot view. It is often associated with a look toward the past, and they have a fascination with history. But what they really want to know, Brandon, is what is the meaning? Where does this thing live? Like if I said to you like right now, like, hey, we're looking for a bat and it's baseball season, like you think of a baseball bat. But if I say the word bat and it's October, there's a different context. And so now you're thinking, something that flies or Batman. And so context seeks out like what is surrounding that will help inform why this thing is the way it is.
I mean, October, I might still think baseball, but I gotcha.
Yeah, if you're fortunate to be playing into, October, then yeah.
If my team made it that far, I might still be there. Yeah. So the context one is interesting because of these strengths, because of their frequency. They're so different. That one's so unique. So that's a really helpful way. All right, which one's next?
Okay, let's talk about futuristic. So futuristic is unique among the 8 strategic thinking themes in that it is the only one that generates its own data. So whereas input, learner, intellection, strategic, context, they're collecting information. Futuristic is unique in that it has a generative quality. It can create data that doesn't exist yet. They can forecast things. They can create visions and possibilities that they're not realized. That one fascinates me. My best friend has futuristic, and this guy, since we were in high school, has just been able to see. He also has strategic, but this guy, he sees into the future. It's that simple. And he, had a vision even for himself, his career when we're in high school that he realized 20 years later.
That's pretty impressive. I'm always fascinated by the context futuristic dichotomy, the past, and then you're right, the generative qualities of the futuristic strength that can predict and then, prevail to get it there. And so it's seeing out and the incredible accuracy of either that forecast or the prophecy, right? The self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. And imagine if you have a team where you have someone who leads with high context, someone who leads with high strategic, and someone who leads with high futuristic. All bases are covered. Like that.
Got to hit strategic now then. Got to go there.
It's the 360 view.
Yeah, that's good.
And let me back it up. So analytical, you get the best of folks who lead with high analytical when you basically put them to the test to prove it. They are the folks that are going to quickly put together. These themes will emerge. The more information that they collect, it's like playing that game 20 questions. They will quickly remove some things that no longer could be true and seek out until they boil it down to the essence, to the truth. They make your decisions, your plans airtight. They make sure that what we're going to do will be effective.
Nice. I just had a recent conversation about analytical as a strength, and it was from someone with a tech background, of course, and just described, the quantitative and qualitative reasoning, pathways, and how the analytical really leans heavy quant. We want to have data, we want metrics, we want reason, because they always feel under the microscope of prove it. They always feel under the I have to substantiate what I put forward, because they strong discomfort with conjecture. Conjecture is analytical's enemy.
And you could trust that when they bring it, they've rinsed it, they've tested it, they've tried it, they've opened it, it shuts, this thing works. I want to give you one more thing for analytical. They will ask why. Folks who, from an interpersonal perspective, we know that oftentimes the question, if you lead with why, people can naturally become defensive. But the reason that they're asking you why is simply to make sure that it fits. Does it work?
That's right.
So now moving to ideation, I always think of ideation like popcorn for ideas. They are fascinated by possibilities and they love iterations. And for them, you just give them a topic, give them a little bit. And not only will they take the suggestion that you gave them, but it comes out like, or we could do this, or what if it looked like this? It doesn't mean that they have to turn them all into it. They don't have to put it into action, but they do love talking about the idea itself and the possibilities that it could bring.
Sometimes to the challenge of their team, they'll continue down the popcorn path, and the team is telling them, "We popped the whole bag. We did it. We're there. We got it. We got the winner. Let's go."
I know this is part of a series, and it's when you think of the 4 domains, when you think of order of operations, strategic thinking is right at the beginning. Like at the beginning, this is the time to put a bunch of ideas on the table. But if you've gotten to the process where we're now executing it, that's where it's good feedback for those with ideation of like, yes. It's like at the casino when they're like, no more bets, no more ideas. We're executing the plan.
Yeah, I want to pause there, and I know we're going to get into what number are we on? We're on 5, so we got 3 more. I want to pause there for just a moment because we're going to come back to that. Strategic thinking is top of the funnel. Strategic thinking is start of the process, because if we start to execute, which because many influencers find themselves in roles of leadership, and influencers have a way to give way first to executors, first to go. And the world has a lot of achievers in it. The world has a lot of responsibility, it has a lot of these heavy duty, go get her done strengths. And I don't know if you've seen this, but in my experience, often it's, we're all the way over here. Now we have to course correct. Somebody bring a thinker. And your thinkers might have all along the way been going, hey, no, wait, you're missing. Oh, stop. Oh, wait, we gotta come back. And a really important way that Ken is describing for us today, just that process, the order of operations. So thank you for that, Ken. We will come back to that. What's next?
Okay. We've talked a bit about input. So I would go to intellection. And the genius of intellection is the deep musing. Intellection is deep. Intellection is going to think about it in a very comprehensive way. And when given time, they really can process some complex stuff. Really, really, really complex information. After they've done it, you can know that they have been very thorough in their process. And keep in mind, that's not a headache for them. That's sport. They enjoy the challenge. Give them something that is, just requires more. If the one thing is like Wordle, the New York Times crossword puzzle, that's intellection. Okay. Yeah. Wordle is achiever. Like that's easy.
That's a good, that's a good imagery, right? Yeah. You want to throw something hard at these guys. Cause that's good. That's sport. I haven't heard it said that way. I love the imagery of the intellects being that deep thinker that's, when given the time, when given the space, when given the challenge, the paradox, the ugly outsized problem, the thing we're solving for, it's when they're very stimulated. And even in the discomfort of the unknown is actually the energy that moves them forward. It's what they gravitate toward.
Yeah, that's the juice. They give them the hard one. Like this is the one that they really are going to have extra motivation for because it catalyzes something in them that wants the intricacy of thought.
Very much. Very much.
That takes us to learner. And learner has incredible capacity when it comes to two things. The first is just learning. And their curiosity is nearly insatiable. Like they really are down for learning anything from managing a CRM to cooking pasta. Like to them, everything is interesting. And it has incredible utility on teams when they get an opportunity to help other people learn. If you put them in positions, Brandon, where they can show somebody how to do something or make something complex, break it down into 2 or 3 main points to help somebody make it sticky, you'll get the best from them.
I love the reality that this particular strength, I think in the latest data I saw, it was number 2. So number 2 most common. And so thinking about learner and that broad curiosity and the, their authentic curiosity. And it's interesting because a learner can ask why and how and what, and it's disarming. So instead of their questions that other of their cousins can ask in a way that might feel a little pressing, learner asks with such an open hand, such a humility to them. And there's such an authenticity to, I'd like to know, please. I'd like to understand. I want to get to there. And so it's very welcome. It's very welcoming in that way. And I find it's great cohesion on a team. Learners seem to bring a cohesive quality.
Yeah, to connect it to one of the other 4 domains, some folks with high learner use that talent theme as a relationship building. The things that they ask you, it looks just like somebody with high relator that's trying to get to know you. Well, learner is in a way is getting there. It's just using a different thing to get there. And that takes us to strategic. And strategic has incredible utility to create pathways. They love, and I mean absolutely love and enjoy the challenge of figuring out a way, especially if other people don't think that there's a way. Like you give them the who, what, where, why, when, and they'll give you 2 or 3 solutions.
Yeah, this is an interesting strength. I've appreciated its place amongst teams or how it's used by leaders because of the nature of the intuition involved here. Because a strategic can spend time thinking for strategy, but a strategic can also have strategy happen to them. They can be in a spot and then the way that that will work is they're seeing and sorting pretty well throughout their mind or what they're actually envisioning on the board, on the page. And they can work in white space so well. So when there's a space, they can naturally fill in, well, here's where this can take you here and that. And sometimes that 3D nature of what they can build does cause some of their other thinking strengths that might be more linear in thought need more, more of a computation. I need to see a principle. I need to see something play out. So it's fascinating to watch this one work in its space.
Yeah. You just gave me some really good memories of a colleague that I had that also had an art background, and he literally would draw, and it was gorgeous. It looked like those old UPS commercials. He would create vehicles and trees and computers and all the lines and the logic boxes. But that is the way they think. I mean, it's like the Matrix for them. It is all sort of like just swirling around up there.
KBJ, everywhere you look, friends. Facebook, the Gram, X, LinkedIn. And if you are listening today and you're one of our friends in higher education, Ken is an excellent resource for you. Today, as we talk about the strategic thinking domain, we've just done a walk through all 8. For many of you, this is going to build on the individual sessions that each of those strengths were in. And let's start to tie those together. So, Ken, as you think about this domain represented on a team, and we're trying to give this domain its voice and make sure that they're being heard, that they're in the front of that process. And so I know you've done your fair share of coaching with individuals and in teams. How do you help represent this one to the other team members in context of the other domains?
Well, I love this phrase in coaching, and it's whether you are looking to get the best from your teammates or you just want your voice to be heard, but you get the best of me when. And you get the best of folks who lead with high strategic thinking when you give them opportunities to ask the questions, become informed, collect the information, and allow for this analysis and process. They're almost always going to ask you, what is the desired outcome? What's the objective? And when they can begin with the end in mind, then they can go. They may have an archive themselves. They may already have enough information in order to give you several options. But in the event that they don't, they will get real hungry for the information that they need to give you a pathway.
I have found with this domain that if you don't give them voice early, as you were describing, they will not go quietly into the night. This domain will make sure you know what you need to know, whether you want them to or not. And that will come in the form of a 10-page, message, that will come in the form of other ways to deliver their perspective that they think you need to know. Because if they can head you off at the pass before a major mistake is made, or you haven't heard, that is one constant I have watched with this domain, is that they don't shrink back. Now, the only exception to that, and I wonder if you've seen this, is if they are the minority on the team. So if they're the lone voice, if they're one of the few that's going to be asked to use critical analysis, to do the research, but they're being bypassed. I have at times seen those lodge their voice and then shrink back to, they'll have to come get me when they need me because they're ignoring.
Well, I mean, you referenced strategic. Strategic can see it coming. If they've worked with the team for a while, they can sometimes just adapt to their pace. If they know, they'll get the best of them if they start, and then they're going to come back later and say, okay, how can we do this differently? Or how did we pivot? They wait. We know this from a developmental standpoint. Sometimes you're not necessarily ready to process the information. There are certain things that are relevant at a certain time. And if you're not ready to receive it, well, then it's just kind of like, yeah, it's better left said for later.
That's good. So Ken, when you're, in the seat of coaching a leader, high in strategic thinking strengths and they're wanting to grow, develop, and you're giving them advice for how to leverage this domain, how to get the most of it. Where, there sometimes when we are the highest IQ in the room, that doesn't always mean we're the highest EQ in the room. And those two can at times be in alternate positions. And so I have found with some leaders who are so strong in this domain, they're brilliant, genius minds, but they struggle. The people equation struggles because there's so much emotion over there. And sometimes this domain may or may not know how to traverse that as well. Wonder if you can give our listeners today just some advanced thinking on coaching those strong in this domain.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, because they're not always understood what their intentions are. I think one of the biggest barriers sometimes for those who lead with strategic thinking is that I liken it to math in high school. Your teacher always wanted you to show your work. And people who think strategically oftentimes are 2 or 3 steps ahead. And they get you the outcome that you want, but for other people, they may not know how you did it. And so it becomes this question of, how do we replicate that? What do we do if you're not here? I'm not really sure how you made that. And so it is important to check in with your teammates so that they also have a thorough understanding of the plan. What if the plan is just in your head? Well, that's not something that I can read. And so any transparency that you can provide about, here's where we're going, this is why we're doing it this way, and here's what we do as contingency, it helps you create a shared understanding. The other thing is to remember that, emotion is a powerful influence on behavior. So even though you may be able to see things strategically and logically, that doesn't mean that other people use that to inform their decisions. Their feelings may be a driving force for how they want to interact in their environment. And you want to be intentional to make room for that.
I've heard it said recently that 80% of decisions are emotion-based. And there are times with our strategic thinking friends that I remind them that your data can produce emotion. Your information can help bring that. And especially if what you've uncovered is about to tell everyone in the room their theory is wrong and where they thought they were going, because I have found leaders in this domain sometimes have to bring the bad news. No, we didn't achieve what we thought. No, we didn't get to where we were going. If you're the quant, you're not always the most popular one, because you're giving data. You're telling us what is real and what is true, not necessarily what we want to hear. And you're vital to us. We need you. You're so important to the success of any operation. And yet sometimes you have to be that island out there telling us what has to be said.
For sure. And there's an anticipatory consideration there. It's remember, your reveal, folks, we have emotional attachment, particularly if we have strong alignment with the work that we're doing.
I wonder if you could speak for a minute about the relationship with this domain with their friends over there on the executing side. So the ones that are going to make it go, make it happen. And there could be some friction there at times between these two domains.
Yeah, it is really important to remember what motivates the domains. The motivation for those who lead with high execution, that achiever, focus, discipline, responsibility, is to get things done. And if they see that productivity is inhibited by additional collection of information, additional strategies, well, then they're going to have an experience of frustration or annoyance. And it's a reminder of, once the plan has started, they probably don't want to stop. Anything that inhibits them getting something done, you may see something that's important, but it's you should choose very wisely, because if you keep doing it, they're going to get into a space where it's hey, How many more ideas do you have? We got to get it done too. Think about entrepreneurs. Like, think about how important it is to be first to market. You could be tweaking and considering and doing all that other thing, but meanwhile, someone else got that product or service to market, has iterated twice, and they're there. They're doing it. And now your idea is old.
That's right. I have found that when there's respect between these two, when the achievers and the analyticals and the intellects and the arrangers, and there's such a respect and an appreciation for each one's part. Obviously, across 4 domains, the influence and the relationship very people centered, and the task and thinking folks, and the executing and strategic thinking, and each one, has its part in the order process. And our doers, we need, they carry such weight for the long-term success, but that always seems to have its best outcome when the thinkers can help course correct as we go, and help us inform, hey, we're on a path and you're trudging well, but that's not going to go where we want. And that cooperation is vital for success.
Yeah, it's the opportunity. I like your analogy. It's like a checkpoint. Let's check in. I've even seen folks in teams use this phrase where it's, what questions should I be asking? And it goes both ways. What things should I be considering?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So friends, Ken Barr Jr., and you can find him again. LinkedIn seems to be a place where he have the most real estate to work with. So a lot there. So if you'd like to reach out to him, he's happy to connect with you on a message there. Ken, so with this domain, when we think about, our listeners, some of them are going to be coaches, others are practitioners inside of organizations, and some of these are leaders developing future leaders. So let's just take a moment to think about managers, leaders, and how effective they can be when you've coached with or worked with leaders that come from this particular domain. So they're going to meet people, influence people, doing people, and so they're needing to figure out the people side where that might not be their most natural disposition. And I'm thinking in certain industries that don't attract as much of the relationship types, they attract more of these thinking types. One might call out engineering, for example, fields where, we're being asked to lead, being asked to manage, but we're really strong with this particular domain. What are some ways that we coach them or support them to be successful coming from this domain as a manager or into an executive leadership role?
That is a fabulous question, because so much of our success it's related to like how well we get along with our teammates. And there's an element, if you seek to understand who you work with, then you will understand the individualized ways on how to get the best from everybody. So if you are an information processor, consider aiming that at your teammates. Like, know, how do you get the best from Aaron? How do you get the best from Poppy? How do you get the best from your colleagues? But the other thing is, you want to be considerate that you're not perceived as a know-it-all, because you don't know it all. You know a lot, and you may be very deep in a few areas, but if you show up in a way where everyone just kind of thinks that it's always going to be your idea, or that you're the ultimate source, well, then what opportunity will they feel that they can extend their input or their influence? So there's a piece where you don't want to show up in a way where folks think like, well, this guy always has the answer.
That's good. That's really helpful. And your reference earlier to learner and how these strengths, though naturally inclined toward some sort of idea or process or invention, something that we're an equation, when they're applied to people, can really, be supportive of that effort to lead or manage. How do I understand your tendencies, for example? How do I understand what your needs are? How do I account for and create some routine around what works best for you? And I've actually found some leaders that one of the hacks they use is they'll create an equation for people. When I meet with them this often, when I do this sort of, intervention, when I add this minus that plus this, I get this outcome. And if that works, if that gets you to where you're going as an effective leader, creating a positive relationship, then use what you have, because you're probably not going to grow empathy tomorrow if it's number 34 out of 34. You're probably not that manager you watch over there who seems to be fluid and effortless with their people. That's probably not growing for you anytime soon. And so the respect of use what you got. And in this domain, there's a lot here. There's a lot here to support effective leadership.
For sure. And I would just love to add that when you're on a team, differences are an advantage. And if you're the person that is always doing the reading and collecting the information, you can benefit by finding a partner who has high influence. Like, let them be the megaphone for the information. The way that you talk about it may not be as exciting as somebody who leads with high communication or woo or competition or maximizer. So you don't have to go against the grain. Just get them on your team.
That's awesome. Ken, thank you for joining us today. And listeners, if you've found some value today from our conversation, we do have a resource for you for all 34 strengths. You can learn the contributions and needs. The resource is called How to Be a Good Team Member to Me. It does reference the best of me, how we show up at our best, what we need from others to be successful. And certainly in this domain, some great work that can be done with that tool. Email Brandon at 34strong.com. We'll make sure that you get your copy sent to you soon. Ken, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to talk through the strategic thinking domain with you today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Always good to connect.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken, for joining us. We appreciate you for joining us as we talked about the strategic thinking domain. We look forward to listening next time as we talk through one of our strengths. And until then, thank you, listeners. Be strong.
Thank you for tuning in to the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. Please feel free to reach out to Brandon to partner with 34 Strong for collaboration opportunities to serve your employees or clients together. If you are a strengths coach, lead a strengths-based team, or are a fan of strength, we invite you to receive our complimentary resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, Understanding My Contributions and Needs. Email Brandon_Miller at 34strong.com to connect, and he will gladly share this resource that will continue to unlock the power of strength.